Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible. And in today's video, we are going to be doing a 2024 horror look ahead, and we're going to get into it right now. Now we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys that please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with a movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. Also, I want to apologize for my voice today. I know I am still kind of sick. I did a bunch of traveling in the Christmas holidays there. It definitely caught up to me, and now I am just getting over it, but I really wanted to get back on schedule. So I have been scripting this video for days, and I decided let's just run with it. So please excuse my voice for this one. I'm sure I'm going to get better soon. Also, what I did with this video is I tried to look up as many movies as possible as I could, bigger movies coming out in 2024, and I did try to sort them based on whether or not they were actually going to be releasing. Some of the movies, they only release them at movie festivals, so I did want to try to at least limit those as much as possible, or not really go with the release date that they had there. So sometimes it would be March 15th was the release date, but as we've seen, like movies with Talk to Me, sometimes they can be released in festivals like up to a year early. So I did try to just keep those ones vague and only give the dates for the confirmed movies that I know will be out for all of us to watch. So with that, pull up, grab yourself a drink, and get ready to hear about the 40 movies I researched coming out in 2024. Now, as usual, I've went through and written some notes on each of these. I mean, there's like 40 movies here. There's no way that I can memorize everything. So the first one that we're going to get into is a sci-fi horror thriller, and that is a movie called I.S.S, and that is coming out in January. Tensions flare in the near future aboard the International Space Station as a conflict breaks out on Earth. Reeling, the U.S. and Russian astronauts receive orders from the ground. Take control of the station by any means necessary. This one looks like a little bit more of a thriller, but it could have a really good premise. It looks like it has great tension, and even seeing the Earth just devastated in the background gets my adrenaline pumping for these people. I love the hostility of space. I just love the hostility of space as an environment, and I'm looking forward to this one. It stars Chris Messina, which was the detective in Devil, and John Gallagher Jr., who you see in films like 10 Cloverfield Lane and Hush. And it's directed by Gabriella Cowperthwaite, who produced Blackfish, which is one of my favorite dark documentaries. The next movie we're going to look at is a drama horror thriller called In a Violent Nature, and this one's coming out in January. The horror movie tracks a ravenous zombie creature as it makes its way through a secluded forest. Not much on this one and no trailer. Will this be more of a zombies kind of survival story? It stars Lauren Marie Taylor, who was in Friday the 13th 2, and it's directed by Chris Nash, who directed the ABCs of Death 2. The next one we're going to look at is a straight horror movie by the name of Baghead, and this one's supposed to come out in January or February. A young woman inherits a rundown pub and discovers a dark secret within its basement. Baghead, a shape-shifting creature that will let you speak to lost loved ones, but not without consequence. So the producers of It and Barbarian have brought us Baghead, which looks like it has a really good premise. I liked a lot of the imagery I saw in the trailer, from the disturbing women in the basement to some of the body horror with the fingers and limbs twitching and distorting. This one looks like it'll be good and creepy with some good jump scares. It's starring Freya Allen, which is known for the Witcher series, and it's directed by Alberto Corredor. Next, we're going to look at a horror thriller called Out of Darkness, and this one's coming out in February. In the Stone Age, a desperate gang of early humans band together in search of a new land. But when they suspect a malevolent mystical being is hunting them down, the clan are forced to confront a danger they never envisioned. As someone who's always been a fan of medieval fantasy, I'm really interested to see how this horror movie plays out. I love survival stuff, and it looks like they're going to be exploring some pretty unforgiving lands in this one. And I mean, all the while they're going to be like stalked by some sort of supernatural horror. So that could be kind of terrifying. One of the things that I always say to my girl is something that makes the setting more terrifying is in the medieval ages, there just was no light. There was no street lights. Like nowadays you take for granted, you look outside. You can see that there's tons of lighting. You can see down the street. But just like when you're camping, like, could you imagine living a life where the nighttime was like so dark that you just couldn't see anything? Like, unless it was a full moon or a fresh snow, you couldn't even barely see your hand in front of your face. I can see a lot of terrifying situations coming up in this one for sure. Also, something else I sometimes imagine is living a life where there's just no laws whatsoever. Anyways, I could go on forever kind of rambling and talking about this sort of setting, so we'll just move on to the next one. This movie is directed by Andrew Cumming. Next, we're going to look at a comedy horror romance called Lisa Frankenstein, and this is going to be available in February. A coming-of-age love story about a teenager and her crush who happens to be a corpse. After a set of horrific circumstances bring him back to life, the two embark on a journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts. All I have to say is comedy, romance, together, puke. No, I'm just kidding. From what I saw of this one, it looks like it may provide a pretty good chuckle or two when it comes to like that 80s nostalgia. Other than that, I guess it's something to watch, but thank God not even my girl would want to watch this one. She would just rather throw on something scary, and I definitely prefer that as well. This one is starring Catherine Newton from the movie Freaky and Jenna Davis, who was the voice of Megan. And it's directed by Zelda Williams, who worked on the Dark TV web series. The next movie we're going to look at is a horror thriller, and it is a movie called History of Evil, and it's supposed to be available in February. There's a very cliche story on this one. A family on the run takes shelter in a remote house that turns out to have dark secrets. But depending on how it's executed, this one can still be good. It's directed by Bo Merhoseni. Next, we're going to look at an animation horror called Stopmotion, and it's available in February. A stop-motion animator dealing with the loss of her mother creates a puppet project, which comes to life and threatens her sanity. Animated horrors can generally be hit or miss, so I'm hoping that we get some good creeps and scares along with a good psychotic break in this movie. It stars Ainsling Franciosi, who was in The Last Voyage of Demeter, and it's directed by Robert Morgan, who did the ABCs of Death 2. Next, we're going to look at a straight horror movie named Imaginary, and it's coming out in March. A teddy bear named Chauncey comes to life and forces a family to battle the child's imaginary friend. So the producers of Megan and the Black Phone have put together what looks like a pretty creepy doll horror here. I love some of the imagery that I saw, and it just looks like Chauncey is going to have a pretty supernatural feel. As a fan of doll horrors, if we get to see two doll horrors, count me in. It's starring Tom Payne from the Walking Dead TV series and Jeff Wadlow, who produced the Bates Motel TV series. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror called Late Night with the Devil, and it's coming out in March. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. This is a found footage horror about a talk show host whose show descends into madness. This is a cool premise, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. It stars Laura Gordon, who we saw in Saw 5, and is directed by Cameron and Colin Carnes. Next, we're going to look at a horror thriller movie called You'll Never Find Me, and it's releasing in March. On a stormy night, a stranger seeks refuge in an RV park. The person who lets him in regrets his decision. This sounds like it could be kind of interesting. I like these stranger stories as long as the stranger gets really weird or does really weird things. I love it when he puts people in awkward situations, and by he, I mean he or she. It could be a female stranger as well. Unfortunately, there was no trailer at this time. It is directed by Josiah Allen and Joshua Bell. Next, we're going to look at another horror thriller movie called Motherland, and it's releasing in March. A family that has been haunted by an evil spirit for years. Their safety and surroundings come into question when one of the children questions if the evil is real. Unfortunately, not much to see when it comes to this one. The premise sounds interesting, and the movie could easily turn into a mind-bender with a twist. It stars Halle Berry, who was in Gothica, and it's directed by Alexander Aja, who's known for films like High Tension, Piranha 3D, Crawl, and The Hills Have Eyes. Next, we're going to look at a family type of horror movie, and this one is the Ghostbusters, The Frozen Empire, and it's releasing in March. The Spengler family returns to iconic Ghostbusters headquarters to rejoin the original Ghostbusters to battle a force that's left the city a frozen wasteland. Now, I don't always find scares when it comes to the Ghostbusters movies, but I'm always optimistic that they'll treat the Ghostbuster franchise properly. Plus, from the scenes I saw, it looked like it had a good kind of 2012 destruction element to it. You know, the disaster movie 2012 where the frost and freeze kind of sweeps over the land. So we might actually get some rawness in this one. I saw some frozen bodies being destroyed. I know that's not like dripping blood, but it's still something. I mean, from what I saw, it did kind of leave me with a question of, is this a horror movie? I mean, I always considered Ghostbusters somewhat of a horror comedy, but on IMDb, it just says adventure, comedy, fantasy. So this one might not really fit the bill in the end. Maybe they're just planning to have next to no scares on this one. Either way, leave in the comments whether or not you guys feel Ghostbusters is a horror movie. This movie is directed by Gil Keenan. Next, we're going to look at another comedy horror called Mickey's Mousetrap, and it's available in March. It's Alex's 21st birthday, but she's stuck at the amusement arcade on a late shift, so her friends decide to surprise her. But a masked killer dressed as Mickey Mouse decides to play a game of his own with them, which she must survive. Unfortunately, I'm not overly impressed with the acting in this one. Even the dialogue felt stiff. At least it'll be a slice of teen life, so we can always get some decent kind of cruel humor out of that. Only being extremely gory could save this movie from what I've seen. I guess when it comes out, we'll have to see if this one's good. It's directed by Jamie Bailey. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror movie called The First Omen, which is available in April. A young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring forth the birth of evil incarnate. This one is another classic franchise that I'm always interested to kind of see what they do with it. The trailer wasn't bad, it was a little anticlimactic, but there was some kind of weird imagery throughout. This one is starring Ralph Ineson, and it's directed by Robert Eggers, who directed The Lighthouse, The Witch, and The Northman. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror movie called Infested, and it's available in April. Residents of a rundown French apartment building battle against an army of deadly, rapidly reproducing spiders. Now, if you know me, I am not down with spiders at all. Like, I kill them because it's my job, but I am hating every single minute of it. I also really don't like bugs on me, so this movie looks like it will definitely get my skin crawling. I love the classic arachnophobia movies, and I have a feeling that this one will have me itching for days. It's directed by Sebastian Vanasek. Next, we're going to move on to another straight horror, a movie called Immaculate, and it'll be available in April. Cecilia, a woman of devout faith, is warm welcome to the picture-perfect Italian countryside, where she is offered a new role at an illustrious convent. But it becomes clear to Cecilia that her new home harbors dark and horrifying secrets. Now, a convent with dark and horrifying secrets isn't exactly new material, but we're just going to have to see how this one's executed when it comes out. Next, we're going to look at a comedy horror called Horrorscope, and it's available in May. A group of college friends begin dying in ways connected to their fortunes after getting their horoscopes read. Now, this movie could be good. Not only do we get horoscope horror, but when I hear about fates being revealed, it always reminds me of kind of a Final Destination kind of vibe. One where people start trying to change their fate or circumvent fate, and we usually get a good variety of kills in kind of surprising ways, so that's always good. Plus, a group of college friends is another setting I love. Again, I just love younger, cliquey, horror kind of comedy. I don't know why, it just really harkens me back to Friday the 13th kind of days. This one is starring Owen Fiore from Mandy and is directed by Spencer Cohen and Hannah Halberg. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror that I know is going to be a popular one, and this is The Strangers Chapter 1, which is available in May. A young couple drive across country towards a new beginning. Unfortunately, they have no choice but to stop in a secluded Airbnb in Oregon and endure a night of terror against 3 masked strangers. Now, the trailer for this one was good and tense. It encompassed exactly what I wanted a Strangers movie to be. Looking forward to a good nail-biter in this one. It stars Madeline Petch from Polaroid, and it's directed by Rennie Harlan, who produced the Dilatov Past Incident. I am definitely looking forward to this one. Next, we're going to look at a fantasy horror mystery called The Watchers, and it's available in June. This movie follows Mina, a 28-year-old artist, as she gets stranded in an extensive, immaculate forest in the Western Ireland. After finding shelter, she becomes trapped alongside 3 strangers, stalked by mysterious creatures each night. This one really interests me because it's Ashana Shyamalan's directorial debut. I'm interested to see if she has her father's kind of trademark endings and if it's actually going to be a show of talent and heart or just more nepotism. This one stars Dakota Fanning, it stars Olwen Fiore from Mandy, and Georgina Campbell, who was in Barbarian and Bird Box Barcelona. The movie is also directed by Ashana Shyamalan, like I said, who was an assistant director on the movie Old. Next, we're going to look at a drama sci-fi horror called A Quiet Place Day 1, and it's available in June. The plot in this movie is under wraps. The first 2 movies in this franchise were great, and I can't wait to see this one when it drops. It stars Jamon Hounsou, who was in The Vatican Tapes and Deep Rising, as well as Alex Wolff, who was in Old and Hereditary, and Lupita Nyong'o, who was in the movie Us. So we really do get a good cast in this one. It's also directed by Michael Sarnowski, who returns from directing A Quiet Place Part 1. Next, we're going to look at a horror mystery thriller named Trap, and it's available in August. This movie is the latest offering from M. Night Shyamalan. They're keeping this one pretty quiet, but I am interested to see if it's got one of the kind of M. Night Shyamalan patented endings, which I'm sure it will. It's starring Josh Hartnett from 30 Days of Night and The Faculty, and is directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who's most known for The Sixth Sense. Next, we're going to look at a drama horror thriller called Speak No Evil, and it's available in August. This movie is a remake of the Danish movie Speak No Evil, released in 2022. A family invited to spend a weekend in an idyllic country house go from a dream vacation to psychological nightmare. Now, when I watched the Danish version of this one, this movie was a really good movie. It was uncomfortable and awkward, and I'm just waiting to see if American facelift on this movie will do it harm or good. This one stars James McAvoy from the movie Split and is directed by James Watkins, who did Eden Lake and The Woman in Black. Next, we're going to look at another horror sci-fi movie. This one is called Aliens Romulus, and it's available in August. They really didn't give too many details on this new Alien film, but it looks like it's going to be set between the first and the second movie. I'm excited for this one. I've always loved the classic Alien movies, and although some of the newer entries have lost their way, I do have hope from what we saw from the latest Predator movie, Prey, that we could see something that does this one justice. This one is directed by Fede Alvarez, who was a writer on Evil Dead 2013 and Don't Breathe. Next, we're going to look at the comedy fantasy horror Beetlejuice 2, available in September. This is a follow-up to the comedy Beetlejuice, about a ghost who's recruited to help haunt a house. It's pretty cool that Tim Burton is returning for Beetlejuice 2. We also get to see Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder in this one, which is cool to see as a fan of the original. As someone who's been waiting on this sequel since childhood, I really do hope that they do this one justice. This one stars Jenna Ortega from Scream X, Willem Dafoe from The Lighthouse, and Monica Bellucci from Irreversible. So we get another good star-studded cast in this one. And it's directed by Tim Burton, who's done everything from Edward Scissorhands to Beetlejuice 1. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror that I'm excited about, and it is Saw 11, available in September. No plot details on this one, but after we saw the success of Saw's return, I'm sure we're going to see him again in this one. I really enjoyed Saw X, and I'm looking forward to seeing the traps and brutality that this movie brings. Next, we're going to have another look at a horror mystery thriller called Smile 2, and it's available in October. Even though the plot is under wraps with this one, I'm still excited because I did like Smile 1. I did think it was a creepy movie with some decent jump scares and did have a good sense of dread throughout the movie. From the teaser that I saw, it looks like part 2 will continue with a lot of creepy smiling that we saw in part 1. Parker Finn returns as a director in this one. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror movie, and that is Terrifier 3, available in October. Art the Clown is set to unleash chaos on the unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off to sleep on Christmas Eve. I'm waiting to see if this entry is better than part 2. Although I loved part 1, I did find the gore in part 2, the blood was just kind of runny and watery. I also felt like the movie dragged quite a bit. At least I know, like the other ones, that we are in for something completely brutal. Hopefully we definitely get a better outing on this one. Lauren Rivera returns from Terrifier 2. We have David Howard Thornton, of course, as Art the Clown. And Chris Jericho also returns from Terrifier 2. It is written and directed by Damien Leone, who did all 3 Terrifier movies. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror, The Wolfman, that's available in October. About a man and his family who have been scared to death by a deadly predator. I used to watch old reruns of the Wolfman Jack show when I was young. It was on early in the morning, and I always have kind of been an early riser. I didn't really love the show, so I'm more interested to see where this movie goes. It stars Christopher Abbott, who played in It Comes at Night and The Possessor. And it's directed by Lee Whannell, who actually played in the original Saw. Next, we're going to look at what must be a comedy horror, and that one is Blacula, and it's available on Halloween. This is a reboot of the 1972 original Blacula, in which an 18th century African prince turned into a vampire by Dracula finds himself in modern-day Los Angeles. Now, I'm thinking this is obviously going to be more of a comedic film. I wonder if they'll keep the blaxploitation feel to this one. I'm interested to see what they'll do with it in 2024, but I do hope they keep with the good, even if sometimes offensive jokes. It is what I do want to see, something kind of raunchy if I'm going to watch a comedy horror, so I hope they don't pull any punches on this one. Next, we're going to look at a movie about the original vampire. This one is a fantasy horror mystery. It's called Nosferatu, and it's available in December. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say this, but because we're always seeing so many remakes, and those are the movies that the big budget studios tend to pick up because there's guaranteed money in them, I do hope that they do this one justice. It's good to see one of the original vampire movies from 1922 get a good and modern proper facelift. I feel like I haven't seen that many good vampire movies lately, so the short visuals I do see in the little teaser trailer do give me hope that this is going to be good. Let's hope it doesn't disappoint. It stars Nicholas Hoult, who is in Warm Bodies, and is directed by Robert Eggers. Now, the remainder of this movie list is going to be the movies that, again, are either they didn't have really concrete dates, so I just put them in broad categories, or their release dates were film festivals. So I just put these ones together according to just general release dates. The first movie we're going to look at is a straight horror movie called Return to Silent Hill, and it's slated for early 2024. When a mysterious letter calls him back to Silent Hill in search of his lost love, James finds a once recognizable town and encounters terrifying figures from both familiar and new, and begins to question his own sanity. Now, the teaser for this one was pretty vague, but I did enjoy the Silent Hill games thus far more than the movies. Hopefully this one will be good and change my mind. It stars Hannah Emily Anderson, who was in Jigsaw, and is directed by Christopher Gans, who directed the first Silent Hill. Next, we're going to look at a horror thriller movie called Longlegs, and this one is just slated definitely for 2024. FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes unexpected turns, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer and must stop him before he strikes again. Now, this one stars Nicolas Cage and Alicia Witt, which is what really caught my interest. I haven't seen Alicia Witt in a while, but I feel like more often than not, when you see her in films, it's always going to be something artsy and raw and weird. She also always plays hard-hitting and intense characters that are just like fundamentally damaged in some way, as well as Nicolas Cage, who always has his moments, and hopefully he'll be on one in this movie. It is directed by Oz Perkins, who wrote both The Black Coat's Daughter and I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror movie called MaXXXine, and this one is just slated for a 2024 release. This movie follows MaXXXine, who was the only survivor in the bloody incidents of X, as she continues her journey towards fame to be an actress in 1980s Los Angeles. Now, I love these Ty West films, and Mia Goth is just icing on the cake. Looking forward to see the next in this series. It's starring Mia Goth, who's been in tons of movies, including Pearl, X, Suspiria, and Infinity Pool, as well as being directed by Ty West, who is behind Pearl, X, and The House of the Devil. Next, we're going to look at another horror thriller called Shelby Oaks, which is slated for a 2024 release. A woman's desperate search for her long-lost sister falls into obsession upon realizing that the imaginary demon from their childhood may have been real. Watching a small promo reel on this one, it appears to be a found footage film about paranormal investigators. Those two genres together, especially ones that go missing and this is their last footage, always have the propensity for great creeps and scares. I'm definitely going to be keeping this one on my radar. It's starring Keith David, who was in the original 1982 The Thing, Michael Beach, who was in a bunch of episodes in that new Dahmer series, and is directed by YouTuber Chris Stuckman. Now that would be cool, to eventually become big enough to actually be in or direct horror movies. That would be a dream. So I am interested to see how this one is. Next, we're going to take a look at a horror mystery called Witchboard, and it's slated for a 2024 release. A reimagining of the 1986 horror classic. Witchboard looks like it could be a really good supernatural horror. The production budget seems high, and the cast seems really solid. I like some of the scenes that we get to see, like her getting grasped by a demon, and where it looks like one of the characters tears his own face off, so the trailer for this one is really good. This one stars Madison Eisman from Annabelle Comes Home and is directed by Chuck Russell, who also directed the 1987 film Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Next, we're going to look at another straight horror, a movie called Adrift, and it's slated for a 2024 release. A fishing boat discovers an abandoned yacht with a strange distress call. A deckhand agrees to take lone control of it while it's towed into port, but soon he discovers why it's called a ghost ship. There's not really much to say about besides the plot on this one. They didn't really have much teaser or trailer footage, but it's directed by Darren Aronofsky, who directed Requiem for a Dream, Pie, movies like Mother, so you know you're going to get a really good weird element to this one. I'm sure we're going to get some really weird avant-garde vibes, and the only star that's signed on to this one so far is Jared Leto of Morbius fame. Next, we're going to look at an action horror thriller called Arcadian, and it's slated for a 2024 release. A father and his twin teenage sons fight to survive in a remote farmhouse at the end of the world. A story about the end of the world? Could be a typo, but it could also really be a very dark dystopian time in which we'll just see practically chaos. Like, could you imagine the end of the world and then the end of it? Like, if it was coming to an end, I mean, it could be repopulation of society, but it could also be a descent into chaos. This one is directed by Benjamin Brewer and stars Nicolas Cage. Next, we are going to look at another drama horror movie called I Saw the TV Glow, and it's slated for a 2024 release. Follows two teenagers who bond over their shared love of a scary television show, but the show gets mysteriously canceled. I don't know why, but this one sounds like a little bit of a romance horror to me. I know there's not much footage or anything, but just from that write-up, since there's just not much info on this one yet. It is directed by Jane Schonenbrunn, who also directed We're All Going to the World's Fair, so you know you're in for an avant-garde weird movie with this one. Next, we're going to look at a drama horror mystery called Handling the Undead, and it's slated for a 2024 release. On a hot summer day in Oslo, the dead mysteriously awaken, and 3 families are thrown into chaos when their deceased loved ones come back to them. Who are they? And what do they want? Now, this movie is from the author Let the Right One In, which is just put simply one of my favorite vampire movies of all time. That's why I'm confident that the feelings and emotions will be handled weirdly and perfectly in this movie. I love the premise of the movie, and the undead looked really gory and weird through the scenes that I saw in it. It gives me very heavy rebirth vibes where the mother tries to bring back her daughter. That's how I know that there's going to be like complex emotions in this one, because even in the trailer you just see them trying to deal with like, what would you do if your family all of a sudden came back to life, but you know they weren't like 100% right? Like, do you kill them? Do you report them? Do you return them? Like, what do you do? Do you try to reason with them and maybe bring them back to the side? That's tough, man. Like, if my mom came back, maybe I would just want one more meaningful conversation. Like, you know what I mean? It would be an odd situation for sure. Also, like, some of just the twitchy movement you see in the trailer gives me the creeps. This movie looks good and intriguing and is directed by Thea Vistendahl. Lastly, oh my God, we finally got through it, especially me being sick. Maybe me recording it is like a lot more struggle than you guys just watching it, which would be awesome. Hopefully this wasn't like a bad slog to get through, but let's get to the last movie. The last movie is a straight horror by the name of Cuckoo, and it's slated for a 2024 release. A 17-year-old girl is forced to move with her family to a resort where things are not what they seem. Now, nothing was really jumping out at me when it came to the write-up of this movie, and there wasn't really any trailer or anything at this time, so really we're just gonna have to wait and see on this one. It is directed by Tillman Singer, who wrote the movie Luz. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this 2024 look ahead. I'm sorry that if it was unbearable because I had to do this one sick. I hope you enjoyed kind of the path that we're looking to take for horror this year. It's looking like it's shaping up to be a pretty good year. And you know me, I'm going to be here every week kind of talking about the new releases and some of the movies that you should see for sure. Again, I'm a little bit behind schedule because I was sick, but I do have my top 10 movies of 2023 coming out. So stay tuned for that. And we're just going to get right back to regular schedule, and I will get better. I am sure of that. So again, thanks for joining me. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Loving where the channel is going. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.